For my screencast today, I will be discussing my learning and growth within 4 different competencies. For the first competency, I have to speak about my growth in regards to acting as a professional inheritor, critic, and interpreter of knowledge or culture when teaching students. And my discipline is English. And I find that it's very easy to show the significance of this discipline because English has shown that throughout centuries it has remained significant and relevant and has changed the culture and just the way people acted. For example, we went from Geoffrey Chaucer to Thomas Wyatt to Surrey to Sydney, William Shakespeare, Milton, and there's more, but these are a few of the ones that stood out a lot and who really changed everything. I mean, if we look at Wyatt, Surrey, and Sydney, they brought along courtly love, which changed the traits that women were expected to have in terms of love. And it's fairly easy to be able to make connections through this, just because these are all human beings. You know, they grew out of nothing. Like they were just living. I mean, some of them were part of royalty or were friends with them, but I mean, if we look at Shakespeare, he was not part of royalty at all. He was just your average Joe, and he just did what he was passionate about, and he wanted to change poetry and change the repetition that was occurring in it. So he did that, and he did what he wanted to do, and he became who he is today. And he comes from 1500s, and we still in our classrooms read Shakespeare as an assignment, and people still love him and perform his plays. And I find just that kind of the image that he has created for himself keeps it going and definitely helps students make that kind of connection to themselves when they think, I could do the same. For the second competency, I have to discuss my growth in regards to communicating clearly in the language of instruction, orally, and in writing, using correct grammar in various contexts related to teaching. So, for starters, I wanted to briefly discuss the exercises that I did in my English class. However, I don't have anything to necessarily show that because it is in a booklet, but I found that a lot of the exercises that we did do in my English class, English 100, was brought into the preparation for the EETC exam, which I did do this semester. So if we look at the site, we can see, well, first, for starters, for the EETC exam, we had to begin by, the first part was just mostly correcting grammar mistakes and editing. And then the second part was writing a letter to parents of students and writing an email to colleagues. And here we have a few examples of multiple choice questions that these actually, I believe maybe one of them was actually used in the exact question was used in the exam. So this is very helpful, and you would just choose which option is incorrect. But they also have sources at the bottom that can help you prepare even more. But the site that I use personally, it's not on it's not one of the sources that is on this PDF, but I was told to go on it, and it was very helpful. So this is grammarbook.com, and you can have a subscription. Personally, I didn't have one because grammar is my strong suit, and I didn't find it necessary for simply one exam. So since you can have a free grammar pre-test, I didn't, it's, if you're using it regularly and if you do struggle with grammar a lot, then the subscription is definitely worth it. But I mostly wanted to do this just to make sure it was still fresh in my brain, and I had every aspect of grammar and every different questions that they could ask me down packed. So here, they don't show you what the correct answer is as soon as you answer it, but once you get to the end, you figure out which ones are right. So then you can basically just keep clicking continue. There are quite a few questions. I don't remember how many. Let me see if I can get to the end quick enough. I don't remember exactly how many, so this could take a few seconds, but I will get there just to here. Okay, so I mean, obviously I didn't answer any of them, so it says not answered here, but what it will do is it basically shows you if the answer that you did here matches with the correct, oh sorry, this is your answer and this is a correct answer, so it's just showing whether you got it right or not, and if these two are different, then you got the wrong answer, and then it explains why this is the correct answer, not this. So that's basically how it is, and it definitely did help me in some rounds because although I am particularly strong in grammar, there were a few as for like who or and whom I do struggle with that a bit, and there were some that I did answer relatively quickly, so I didn't think about it as much, so this helped me kind of make myself read it correctly and really take my time with every answer. I also wanted to discuss the Flipgrid that I did in my education, colonialism, and decolonization class. I did do one in my orientation to professional practice, but unfortunately I do not remember the password to the Flipgrid and I could not find it anywhere. So I won't be showing that. I'll only use this one as an example. But for this one, we only had to do a minute long reply talking about the significance of being on Abenaki land was to us. And I won't show it because we won't be able to hear the audio, but I will speak about briefly what I said. So I just spoke about how it was so important to just simply acknowledge that we are on someone else's land and that we aren't the first ones to have been there. And just that acknowledgement will help bring us into reconciliation and help start a new area while, although we're still remembering what happened, we are using that knowledge to better the community. And this exercise definitely did help me express myself orally because I can have trouble with that at times, but with this Flipgrid, I had to restart it multiple times to make sure that I was grammatically correct in it and I was not stuttering and that I was very fluent in it. For the 11th competency, I have to speak about how I engage in professional development individually and with others. There are a few exercises that did help me with that, and for the starters, I'm going to begin with my school visits, particularly at Galt. Not every class, but there were 2 classes in particular. So my first class was in adapted learning class, and although that class was fairly rowdy, I don't remember the name of the teacher, so I cannot present it, unfortunately. That is my bad. I don't remember. But it was particularly rowdy and loud in that class, and I found that how loud it was really had a toll on like communicating with them, because I did help some of the students, but because it was so loud, even after I helped them and put them on the right track, they still didn't necessarily want to, or they kind of almost forgot about it just because everybody was so crazy around it. It was hard for them to concentrate. They didn't really want to engage in it. So I found that just the environment really did make a big difference. And then, also, I was in a class with Miss Powell, I believe that's how it's pronounced. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, I apologize. But I did not encounter anything particularly crazy in that class, but we did speak to a few students and walk around, and I found it was really helpful to learn how to engage in development with them, because it just, it got that spark going, and it was a different experience that I normally do get, because I can't just go into a random class constantly and speak to students, so it was really nice to have. Secondly, I'm going to speak about a LES unit plan that I had to do for my education colonialism and decolonization class. So we had to come up with a unit plan that we could teach to a class, and me and my group members, we found the theme was Indigenous rhetoric and stories. We wanted to do something a little different that did not necessarily have to do with residential school, because we knew that that would be a more popular theme, and then we made it for grade 10s. And the main source that we did base it on was the privilege test that is done with as/is, and you won't be able to hear it, but I still will say it and just explain it briefly. But what happens is they begin in this position, they're all in the line in the middle, and then they make statements or questions, and then if you did experience that, then you step back. Oh wait, sorry. If you did experience it, you step forward, and if you didn't, then you step back. And basically, your position at the end is what how much privilege you have, and to physically see what kind of privilege you have is just so insane to experience. And this woman right in the back, she, as you can see, she was the one furthest back, and that's because she says in the video she was a female, she was homosexual, and then she's also, as you can see, African American. So she did experience a lot of discrimination, whether it was in one category or the other. And then lastly, I'm going to speak about the journey assignment. So I just find the discussion that we did for the assignment when we were presenting our pieces was very helpful to engage with different people, just because we spoke about how we felt and what we liked about each person's different piece. And although it wasn't necessarily complicated, it was more spontaneous because you didn't know what to expect other people were going to write. So it was nice to help put your thoughts into words. Lastly, I'm going to speak about how I learned how to demonstrate ethical and responsible professional behavior in the performance of my duties. So the thing that definitely did help me the most with that were the field logs. I wrote learning logs in here, but field logs. So that's just because all the readings that we did and the responses that we did, whether it was to technology in classrooms or learning disabilities or Ina Gray's experience in residential school, it was all so mind-opening. And I do have an open mind, and I am very open to different people and cultures. I don't like to discriminate against others, but regardless, reading about it and reading about people's experiences and hearing research about it and statistics, it just made it so much more real and really made my passion to go against discrimination so much bigger. I'm also going to speak about just my class for education, colonialism, and decolonization a bit, just because the class itself and Lisa Taylor is very passionate about gaining reconciliation for Indigenous people. And the whole class, we had readings speaking about residential schools and what happened or what should happen in the future, and it was all just very eye-opening, especially since I didn't really know much about Indigenous people or the history they had with Canada beforehand. So it was very lovely to learn. And then lastly, I'm going to speak about Ina Gray's speech, which I did do a field log about here, and then also here I wrote a letter to her because we were supposed to have a second visit with her in my Edu 205 class, but she was not able to come, so we wrote her a letter. But her experience was very moving and the most effective for me, and it just really helped me learn how to demonstrate ethical and responsible professional behavior, especially this letter. Definitely it rocked my brain because I wanted to put words together to show how I felt, but didn't necessarily want didn't necessarily want to offend her in any way or make her sad. So that definitely did help me put my words into a more professional manner.